Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Federal retirement delays are gaining more attention and criticism in Congress. House Democrats are pressing the Office of Personnel Management for answers on how it's addressing abnormally high retirement numbers. The application surge, largely caused by the deferred resignation program, is slowing down retirement processing for thousands of former feds. Here with more details is Federal News Network's Drew Friedman. Drew, great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Terry.
For context today, let's review the current issues with federal retirement processing.
Many retiring federal employees are facing very significant delays on their applications. Many of them submitted these back in August or September as they were getting ready to officially separate from the government through the Deferred Resignation Program, or DRP. But since then, and leading through the fall and now into the winter, many have been left with limited information from their agencies on the timeline for processing. They continue to wait. Many haven't seen their temporary annuities come through or their annual leave payouts. So there's a lot of converging challenges that are occurring through this. There's fewer HR employees to process applications. Agencies are seeing much higher volumes of retirements. And all of that is leaving federal employees who are trying to retire without a lot of answers or communication.
Well, let's tackle those converging factors kind of one at a time. The HR teams across the agencies were sort of decimated during the DRP themselves, so that's got to be having an impact.
That's right. There have been some losses for staffing across the entire government for HR employees who had been working to process these applications. And that's creating essentially an imbalance of more applications coming in and fewer people to actually process them. So each HR employee or specialist who's working on cases has a higher workload themselves, and that is a contributing factor for sure towards these delays.
And a lot of these DRP resignations came right at the end of the fiscal year, right before the government shutdown. So that stacked them up as well.
Absolutely. During the shutdown, a lot of the work to process these applications was stalled, even though OPM itself, who is kind of the second half of retirement processing, they remain open and their retirement services center continues to work as normal during a shutdown. But depending on the agency, some did furlough their HR staff, and retirement processing either stopped or slowed down during the shutdown. So that's created at least several weeks of delays, again, depending on what agency an employee is retiring out of.
And then in the middle of all of that, OPM rolled out the online retirement application. So did that further complicate the process?
There's mixed opinions on how that has affected retirement processing. OPM said that the new system and that new platform was essential to be able to manage the higher volumes of applications. They say it reduces errors and it essentially tries to streamline the process by digitizing it. But at the same time, having to train and teach HR employees, payroll providers, and all these other pieces and parts that go into the retirement process to teach them an entirely new system while there's also very high volumes, leaves some questions certainly about whether it was the right time to roll out that application, even though generally most people agree that having a modern and digital retirement process in the long run is certainly an improvement over where it has been in the past.
Now members of Congress have gotten involved and sent a letter to OPM. You've got a copy of that letter. What does it say?
That's right. So this is led by Representative James Walkinshaw and other Democrats on the House Oversight Committee. And they were expressing concerns and frustrations really about how the Trump administration and the deferred resignation program has caused this huge wave of retirement applications to enter the government systems. They argue that the issues and the delays were foreseeable and avoidable because we knew back in the spring around April how many people were taking the DRP. So they say agencies had months to prepare, and OPM had most of the year to prepare for what would have been a surge at the end of September, but they're still, now more than or about 2 months out from when those employees officially separated. They're still not getting their payments. So that's creating a lot of questions and criticisms from these Democrats in the House.
Have they asked OPM for specific information?
They're looking for a lot of information. They're giving OPM Director Scott Cooper until the end of January to explain how OPM is addressing the larger volumes of applications, how it is assessing the impacts of the HR staffing reductions, what's going on with customer service and how that's being affected by everything. And then also a lot more, they want more detailed data on how many agencies and payroll providers have been onboarded into the new online retirement application, or ORA, from OPM, and generally just how that processing is going so far. But they definitely were pretty strongly worded in their letter about some of the frustrations that they're hearing from their constituents about the delays in the retirement process.
So with all of this on the table, what is OPM doing to try to address the application volume in anticipation of another surge here in a couple of days?
OPM officials have said they're focused on two main strategies. One is simply having the ORA and fixing some of the early challenges or maybe bugs in that online retirement platform. They said that that's been really crucial to trying to process things more quickly over the last several months and manage the unusually high volume of applications. But at the same time, another way that they're trying to do this is to deliver interim annuities as quickly as possible. Usually, what happens when a retirement application reaches OPM's step in the process is that those retirees will see around 60 to 80% of their final annuity be given to them once a month, once OPM can get that case initially processed before they can reach the final annuity. So OPM says it's trying to get out those interim annuities as quickly as possible to employees as well. There's also, so to speak, a lot of issues on the agency side with retirement processing. Fewer HR staff, as I mentioned, and higher volumes of applications is lengthening the timeline before these applications even get to OPM for a lot of retirees. Again, depending on what agency they're coming from, that really affects the timeline here.
So Drew, for these folks who are waiting to hear anything, what can they expect in the near future?
It's hard to say. Again, I think it depends on the agency. Some agencies and their HR staff are trying to send out at least mass emails to explain the situation and that they're generally pretty overwhelmed with the number of applications. They can also check in the ORA, the online retirement application, where their application is within the retirement process. But a lot of this is going to come down to simply just expecting things to take longer than usual and just having to wait for these things to get processed.
That's Federal News Network's Drew Friedman. Drew, thanks for this update.
Thank you, Terry.
You can find her story at federalnewsnetwork.com.